One thing I've noticed after playing Destiny 2 for thousands of hours is that I really have no reason to get loot anymore. Usually, the only loot hunt I do is at the start of a new season to unlock crafting patterns, and even then, I still just use the same 5 to 10 weapons I was using before anyway. As a new player, I was always chasing cool loot, whether that was to find a great DPS weapon, or I was just following a really cool exotic quest to find a unique weapon from the universe, like the Lament. But now there's nothing left to chase. I raid for no other reason than just to raid, and I dismantle every weapon I find in favor of crafting the ones I want instead. What happened to loot in Destiny 2, and what can be done to make it engaging again? Hey everyone, I'm Rizeki, and welcome to my design analysis of looting in Destiny 2. As always, thanks so much for the click, it means a ton. If you end up liking what I have to say, consider subscribing and liking the video to get more Destiny 2 design videos beamed straight into your YouTube feed. And if you have any thoughts of your own, let me know in the comment section down below. I love reading and responding to all your ideas, so I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone has to say about loot. Without any further ado, let's jump right into talking about what can make loot in Destiny 2 great again. Just like in previous videos, I'd like to start with a handful of concepts that we're going to discuss today. I think each of these contributes to the feeling of loot systems in video games being great, and they provide an incentive to players to go out and actually try and get new loot. So here's our big 3 looting concepts. Number 1, the power and strength of the loot. Number 2, the scarcity. And number 3, the original source of the loot. There's a bit of overlap between scarcity and source, but we'll talk about that more in detail in a little bit. Let's talk about power first. What better reason for chasing loot is there than finding something at the top tier of DPS, the strongest weapon for a Grandmaster, the best PvP role on your favorite hand cannon? Having a strong loadout is what makes players strive for strong weapons and armor. Inside our power category, we have a number of sub-reasons for what makes loot worth finding. 1, it can have a unique effect. 2, it has just overall usefulness. And or 3, power creep. Unique effects are usually reserved for exotics, but are sometimes present on legendary loot as well. For example, why chase down an exotic like Collective Obligation from Vow of the Disciple? It's, well, the only weapon in the game that lets you spread void debuffs to any enemy in your path. Not to mention it has crazy synergies with builds like Gerfalcon's Void Hunter because of it. Other weapons just don't do that. It's unique, so if you want to build around that effect, you only have one option. Go chase down Collective Obligation. For legendaries, we have things like Cold Comfort, which has the ability to basically reload its mag 3 times over, which is unheard of in a rocket launcher, making it great for burst DPS. Overall usefulness refers to the ability for a weapon to just be a solid choice in a large range of content. Weapons like Forbearance for Ad Clear, a strong machine gun like Commemoration, or an exotic like Arbalest fit into this category. It's not necessarily the best for something, but it could be used in pretty much any content and not hinder you. Not too much to say here, since I think a lot of loot falls into the general usefulness category. The much more interesting category, and where I think part of Destiny 2's issue stems from, is power creep. Something I alluded to in the intro was that I just play with the same 5 to 10 weapons at any given time. A new season comes around with new loot, and I don't even bother finding the best of the new loot. None of it matches up to my crafted Apex Predator. Why find a new shotgun when Matador 64 shreds the Crucible for me? If an old weapon is working for me, I have no reason to find something else. I still have friends doing DPS with an Adept Hothead from well over a year ago. So what gives? When designing a system for incentivizing players to use new loot, we have 2 options. We could either remove old weapons, or we make new weapons so strong that they power creep old weapons out of the picture. We've seen Destiny do both of these things in the game's history. We've had sunsetting, and we've seen things like the Immortal being released to overshadow something like Multi-Mach. I'm going to say something that might be a hot take, but bear with me. Sunsetting wasn't bad, but it was done terribly wrong. People hate sunsetting. And now, because Bungie no longer gets rid of old weapons, they're forced to power creep new weapons to force old ones out of use. We get terrors like the Immortal because Bungie can't just remove Multi-Mach anymore. We get reprised Apex Predator because they can't remove hotheads from the game. And over time, our vaults become so overrun by more and more powerful options that now Bungie has to design the rest of the game around it. So they make the game harder, And then players complain because the game's too hard, so they have to make stronger weapons. And then players complain that the game's too hard, and it goes on and on. It's a vicious cycle. But what if there's another way? We don't want sunsetting because it removes our favorite weapons from usefulness. But what if I told you other games already have a solution for this? Let's look at something unexpected. Let's look at trading card games. Yes, card games. If you're familiar with Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, maybe something else, you're probably aware of their standard formats. As new sets are released, older sets are removed from standard. Pokemon, I think, has about a year to 2 years of support for release sets. This creates a rolling window of supported sets in the standard format, and once a set is outside that window, it can no longer be used in the most recent rule set. This allows new cards to be released that don't need to power creep other ones out, and they could serve a new purpose without needing to overshadow old cards. And then on the other hand, there's also other formats that make old cards still usable. In Hearthstone, we have Classic, which is a format that only allows cards from the original Hearthstone release to be used. And we also have Wild, which allows any card ever released to be used. There's no official sunsetting, but there's an incentive to collect new cards in order to be competitive in the newest version of the standard rule set. So how do we apply this to Destiny 2? My answer is pretty simple, I think. Each expansion, we have a new pinnacle cap, aka the highest power level you could attain. At the current time, during Lightfall, this number is 1810. The hardest content in the game is locked at 1815, and enemies are typically a bit stronger, around 1830 power. To compete in this content, you need to be at the pinnacle cap. What if we made it so only weapons released during the Lightfall year are able to reach the pinnacle cap? But we don't want to completely disregard weapons from the Witch Queen or earlier. We want them to still be useful, but not nearly as potent as new weapons. Maybe Witch Queen weapons can only reach a maximum power of 1790. With our artifact power, we could still reach 1810 or 1815 for Grandmaster content, but it's not as easy to do. For older expansions like Beyond Light, let's maybe cap the power at another 20 lower, 1770. It's still good enough to use in the newest raid. I think Crota's End maxes out at 1790, so our artifact power still helps us get to the recommended. But again, it's not nearly as easy to do as it would be for newer weapons. But if we can't really use Beyond Light weapons in Lightfall content, where do we use them? Bungie already sets the recommended power of old content like raids and dungeons to 1600, the minimum power. So let's make it so Beyond Light content like Deepstone Crypt is also set to 1770 power, just like the weapons. Maybe even limit the player to 1770 power if you're above that, just like what's done if you're above 1815 in a Grandmaster Nightfall. Now, not only are the newest weapons from Lightfall useful, but we can still use Beyond Light weapons effectively in their own content, just like we did when it was originally released. We're not getting rid of the weapons, we're just making them less useful in the newest versions of the game. On top of that, let's give a little love to adept weapons as well. Adepts are usually sought after for the ability to use adept mods, which is pretty good on its own, but let's also make it so adept weapons can reach the pinnacle cap of the expansion following their release. What I mean by this is that a Beyond Light adept would be able to reach the Witch Queen cap of 1790 instead of 1770, and Witch Queen adepts can reach Lightfall's pinnacle cap of 1810. Now you really have a reason to farm adept weapons, since they're more future-proof than other loot released in the same expansion. When using this rolling release setup, not only do we incentivize using new loot, but we also allow old loot to be used in regular content like strikes and Crucible, since it's not just removed from the game. So sunsetting isn't so bad if we do it this way, right? Alrighty, on the scarcity. Power isn't the only vector for getting players to seek out loot. Players want to have something that others don't. Ever wonder why World of Warcraft players spend weeks and weeks and weeks to get a single mount? It's because no one has it. You got something that shows you're great at the game. You put in the time, you completed the achievement, you got the thing. In Destiny, we only have a few really rare things. Adept weapons, especially from trials, adept raid weapons, certain exotics, mementos. Did you hate grinding the Halloween event this year? but you just had to do it to get the Lost Memento for that slick all-black shader. That memento is only available during the Festival of the Lost, and if you have that shader, you have something incredibly rare. Finally completed that Grandmaster Nightfall and got your first Adept weapon? All I'm saying is that only 17% of Guardians on Light GG have an Adept Braytech Osprey, but you did it. You have a weapon that only 17% of people have. That's pretty cool. But there's only a limited number of scarce loot in the game. Once you start going flawless every week, you no longer break a sweat in Grandmasters, you breeze through Master Raids, there's nothing to get. We want loot that requires a time investment, an achievement that rewards you with something awesome. Before they changed the source of the Mida Multi-Tool Catalyst, I spent hours getting to the top rank in the competitive Crucible to get the Catalyst for my favorite gun. And man, when I finally got it, it felt so good. I did the thing, and I got rewarded for my achievement. We need more of that. We need something like WoW's rare mounts in Destiny. Something that takes a ton of time and or an incredible achievement to collect. More mementos for doing feats in the game. Why not reward those guys who solo flawless Root of Nightmares? Give them a title that only they could get. Instead of Dream Warriors, those guys are more like Nezarek's Nightmares or something. But now we're bleeding into our final category, loot sources, a tiny bit. Finding loot from an activity you love playing is an awesome feeling. Played a mission that's unforgettable, here's a cool reward for doing it. I will never forget playing the mission for Whisper of the Worm the first time. It is unironically one of the most memorable moments I've ever had in gaming. Having a veteran player shepherd me and a group of friends through this convoluted secret mission was awesome. I had explored Io in and out and never knew this secret existed. Killing specific enemies to open portals, jumping the secret ledges to find caves that led to an immense underground cavern to find a maze of twisting paths, all to be rewarded with the coolest looking gun in the entire game, Whisper of the Worm. And I still have that original Whisper I was given in my vault. I don't care that it's not good anymore. It's cool. The journey to unlock it was what made it special. We need more of this. More unforgettable journeys that give us something special. Maybe you just want to get rewarded for playing something you love. We've started to see a bit of this with the seasonal ranked weapons from the Crucible. Play enough competitive PvP, and you'll be rewarded with a weapon like Rose or Mercurial Overreach, both of which are great weapons to use in that same activity you got them from. You're rewarded with something great for playing an activity you love to play. Maybe you love Gambit. Get rewarded with Malfeasance. Maybe you love doing Master Dungeons. You get really nothing special. Some slightly stronger armor in Artifice Armor, but you're already able to do Master difficulty content, so you probably don't need it anyway, except if you're trying to min-max your loadout. Should you be given a cool memento for it? A unique title to chase for pouring time and time into your favorite activity? Now, there's a big elephant in the room that I haven't mentioned yet. What about crafted weapons? Oh boy, this is by far the easiest source of strong weapons in the game. Found 5 Apex Predators? Well, now you can make the perfect one for the low cost of some Glimmer and a handful of enhancement cores. Why chase the best roll if you could just make your own that has better perks anyway? Now, I don't hate crafted weapons. My issue is that they replace those weapons that would instead require you to go out and find that god roll, that fun roll you think fits your build like no other. Raid weapons being craftable. Why load into the raid again? You already have the pattern, there's nothing left to find anymore. Crafted weapons need to only include weapons that are in seasonal content or the world loot pool. You're already granted these weapons easily, so being able to craft them isn't much of a stretch, since crafting is also an easy source of weapons. Crafting feels like it should be a mechanic to help players receive strong weapons, but they shouldn't overshadow those found through endgame activities. Players can craft a gun to help them get through a difficult raid to find that perfect forbearance, but they shouldn't replace that forbearance. The source of the loot should be equivalent to the power of the loot acquired. So, since crafted weapons are so easy to acquire, they should also be a lower power level. Adept weapons are very difficult to acquire, so they should be stronger than other weapons. Same applies to raid and dungeon weapons. Let's also take a brief moment to talk about exotic armor. Currently, we have 3 sources of exotic armor: world drops, lost sectors, and Vex incursions. Exotic armor is so easy to get. But aren't exotics supposed to be unique artifacts from within the Destiny universe? Caliban's hand is literally the armor that the late Hunter Vanguard Caliban 8 used. It's a 1 of 1. But if I could just farm lost sectors and get 1,000,000 copies of it, that's weird. Now, I know for gameplay reasons we need to be able to farm it, but really the problem here is to get our first copy, we just go into a lost sector for a bit. There's no connection to the Destiny universe here. To find Risk Runner, we have to find our way through old Golden Age ruins to make it to a secret weapon stash of Cade 6. Why can't we have this for armor? It doesn't need to be a grand quest like that of Whisper of the Worm, but make us feel like we discovered something unique and special. Make our exotic armor feel exotic. The source of these exotics should be what gives them value, not just the perks on them. So, there it is. Destiny loot is boring because there's nothing to incentivize us going out to get the loot. We want our loot to have value, whether that's because the loot is so powerful we need to get our hands on it. Maybe we went out and found something with story implications like Ace of Spades or Nezarec Sin. Maybe we did something that no other player has done, and we were rewarded with something really special, like a title or a memento. Looting for the sake of loot is not making anyone excited, and also just removes any reason to go out and play content in the game. We play raids for the loot rewards and stay for the gameplay. Make our loot mean something, and we'll keep coming back for more. But hey, all this might just be my opinion. What do you guys think? Is loot in Destiny fine the way it is? Do you think you have a way to make it better? Let me know in the comment section down below. I can't wait to see what everyone has to say. And if you liked what I had to say, definitely drop a like on the video and subscribe for even more weekly Destiny 2 design discussions. And if you want to talk about even more Destiny 2 with me and other Guardians, join our Discord server linked on screen now and in the description down below. And you could also join me live either here on YouTube or on twitch.tv/Rozeki most nights around 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern time. But hey, that's all I've got for today. As always, I've been Rozeki. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.